What you're feeling is not a malfunction. That heavy, sinking feeling, the internal quiet that's louder than any noise. This isn't proof that you're broken. It's a signal. It's a message from the deepest, most honest part of you. And if you can learn how to read that signal, you might find that what you see as your biggest weakness is actually the source of your greatest strength. But first, let's be very clear. This is not a video about curing clinical depression with philosophy. Depression is a serious medical condition that often requires professional, clinical help. Talking to a doctor or therapist is the most important, non-negotiable first step toward getting well. What this video is about is a radical change in perspective. It's about looking at the existential side of depression, the feelings of meaninglessness, powerlessness, and despair. And our guide for this journey is one of history's most insightful psychological thinkers, Friedrich Nietzsche. Why Nietzsche? Because he was a master of suffering. His life was a long battle with physical illness, isolation, and deep psychological pain. But from that pain, he built a philosophy that celebrated life. He didn't just put up with his suffering. He studied it, used it, and turned it into a tool for growth. He showed how our deepest distress can lead to our deepest insights. Now, the title, Nietzsche Said Your Depression is a Superpower, is meant to be provocative. And to be fair, it's a slight fabrication. Nietzsche never said those exact words. He wasn't talking about clinical depression in the way we do now, and he definitely didn't talk about superpowers. The title is really a modern translation of his much deeper idea that human greatness comes not from avoiding suffering, but from using it. He believed the discipline of great suffering is what has driven every improvement in humanity so far. So let's rephrase the title into a question that gets to the heart of what Nietzsche was really saying. What if your ability to feel deep pain is directly connected to your ability to feel deep joy? What if, by learning to face the abyss of your own suffering, you could come out the other side not just healed, but completely transformed? That's our goal today. To explore the idea that your depression might be a training ground, a fire where your true psychological power is forged. It often starts subtly, like the color is slowly draining from the world. Joy feels like a distant memory. Motivation disappears, leaving an empty space where your drive used to be. Simple things, getting out of bed, answering an email, suddenly feel like climbing a mountain. You can be in a room full of people and feel completely, utterly alone, like you're behind a wall of soundproof glass. You see life happening all around you, but you feel totally disconnected from it. And then there's the voice in your head, that relentless, critical inner monologue. It tells you you're worthless, a burden. It convinces you that this feeling isn't temporary, it's who you are. This isn't something you have, it's something you are. In a world that demands constant connection and happiness, this feeling gets even louder. Maybe depression isn't just about brain chemistry. Maybe it's a signal that your mind can't thrive under the constant pressure of social comparison and artificial online life. This is the raw experience of depression. A crisis of meaning so deep, it feels like your entire reality has crumbled. For a long time, the main story we've been told about this experience is biological. It's a chemical imbalance, a genetic flaw, a problem with your synapses, a biological issue that needs a biological fix, all aimed at getting you back to normal. And let's be clear, those biological factors are real, and the treatments for them can be life-saving. But that story isn't complete. When we reduce this incredibly profound human experience to just a mechanical glitch, we risk stripping it of its meaning. We treat it like a car engine that's sputtering. But a human mind isn't just a machine. What if this glitch isn't just random noise? What if the pain is a coherent message that we need to decode? This is where Nietzsche's ideas come in. To understand his view on suffering, we first have to understand what he meant by strength. He asks a challenging question. What if feeling good all the time isn't the point of a meaningful life? What if a life without any pain is also a life without any depth? He wrote, What if pleasure and displeasure were so tied together that whoever wanted to have as much as possible of one must also have as much as possible? This is the reframe. Depression isn't just a serotonin problem. It's often a crisis of meaning. It can be a perfectly rational response to the hard parts of life when you've lost your why. Nietzsche's idea that suffering can lead to growth is what modern psychologists now call post-traumatic growth. The discovery that facing adversity can lead to a deeper emotional life and a stronger sense of self. From this viewpoint, pain isn't a malfunction, but a transition. The instinct to just numb it or push it away is a form of avoidance. So, here's our new working theory. Your depression is not an enemy to be defeated. It's a guide. It points directly to the parts of your life, your beliefs, and your values that are broken or aren't serving you anymore. It's a powerful invitation to tear down and rebuild your sense of self. As Nietzsche would put it, this is how you become who you are. So if we accept this reframe, how do we actually use it? The first step is to face the feeling head-on, using one of Nietzsche's most famous metaphors, the abyss. He famously wrote, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss will also gaze into you." We usually hear this as a warning to stay away from darkness, but it's more complicated than that. When you are in a depressive state, you are already gazing into an abyss of pain and emptiness. The common advice is to look away, to distract yourself. Nietzsche suggests the opposite. His warning isn't about looking, it's about getting lost. The danger is not in looking at the pain, but in letting it consume you, in forgetting that you are the one observing the pain. Depression wants you to believe you are the abyss. The Nietzschean path isn't to run from the abyss, but to gaze into it with courage and curiosity. This idea is echoed in modern psychology, like the Jungian concept of shadow integration, the process of confronting the dark, unknown parts of yourself to become whole. You don't run from the monster. You study it and learn from it. In doing so, you find that it isn't some external void, but a part of your own inner world. Once you've dared to look, the next phase is to build. This is where two more of Nietzsche's big ideas come into play: the will to power and moving beyond good and evil. First, the will to power. This isn't about dominating other people. It's about mastering yourself. The will to power is the natural drive in everything to grow, expand, and overcome challenges. From this perspective, depression can be seen as a state where your will to power is blocked or even turned against yourself. Your natural drive to grow gets dammed up, and that feeling of powerlessness is the result. The way to unblock it is to find a manageable challenge, any challenge, and push back, because your will rediscovers its strength when it has something to overcome. This connects directly to his idea of moving beyond good and evil. One of the worst parts of depression is the self-judgment. Society gives us a simple rule book: happy is good, productive is good. So if you're depressed or unproductive, you must be bad. We internalize this judgment and feel like we are failing as human beings. Nietzsche would call this a slave morality, letting an external, life-denying set of rules define your worth. To move beyond good and evil means you stop judging yourself with these labels. It means you stop calling your depression bad and start seeing it as simply a state of being. You aren't bad for being depressed any more than a tree is bad for losing its leaves in winter. This shift is psychologically freeing. When you stop fighting a moral war against yourself, you free up incredible amounts of energy. The story "I'm broken" is just one interpretation. You can start asking, what other stories are possible? Could this be a period of necessary rest, a deep recalibration? By questioning the rules, you go from being a victim of your condition to an investigator of it. This all sounds good in theory, but how do we apply it? Let's start building a practical toolkit. Amor Fati is Latin for love of one's fate. Nietzsche called this his formula for greatness. He said one should want nothing to be different. not just to bear what's necessary, but to love it. This doesn't mean you should enjoy being depressed. That's just giving up. Amor Fati is an active choice to affirm your entire life with all its joys and sorrows exactly as it is. This is very similar to radical acceptance, a key part of modern dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. You look at your entire history and say yes to all of it, because every single event, good or bad, was a necessary ingredient in creating the person you are today. To wish away the pain is to wish away the person you've become. In practice, this means calling a truce in the war against your reality. Nietzsche treated his own suffering like data to be analyzed. He believed that our darkest passions, if we study them, can eventually become sources of wisdom. To do this yourself, you can start a practice we'll call shadow journaling. Become a scientist of your own mind. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this feeling trying to tell me?" Log your thoughts. What exactly is the voice in your head saying? Write it down without judgment. Log your physical feelings. Where do you feel the pain in your body? What does it feel like? Log your behaviors. What does this pain make you want to do? Hide. Scroll endlessly on your phone. Analyze your needs. What deeper need might this pain be pointing to? Does loneliness signal a need for real connection? Does worthlessness mean your life isn't aligned with your core values? This practice shifts you from being a passive victim to an active investigator. You're using the pain, turning it into useful information. The Übermensch or Overman isn't some kind of master race. It's a psychological goal. It represents the person who has mastered themselves and now creates their own values, their own meaning. This idea can be used as a North Star for your own growth, similar to how psychologists use the ideal self as a source of motivation. Here's how to use it. Take some time to imagine the future version of you who has successfully integrated the lessons of this difficult period. Who is this person? How do they act and speak? What do they believe about themselves and their past struggles? What gives their life meaning? What are their daily habits? This vision gives you a direction to move toward. It answers the question, what am I working for? It makes the struggle meaningful because you know that this very process is what's forging you into that stronger, more complete version of yourself. With these tools in hand, we can now step into the training ground of daily life. Think of this as emotional weightlifting, building new habits that start to unblock your will. Depression feeds on a feeling of powerlessness. The antidote is to push back against resistance in a small, deliberate way. This is a mix of behavioral activation, a core therapy technique, with a dose of Nietzschean grit. The key is to choose an action so ridiculously small that the voice of despair doesn't even have time to argue. The goal isn't run a marathon. It's put on your running shoes and stand outside for 1 minute. The goal isn't clean the whole house. It's put one dish in the dishwasher. Each tiny action is a small victory against inertia. It's a controlled burst from your will to power that proves to your brain, I am still in control. You are retraining your own mind to believe in its own power. Use Nietzsche's skepticism to challenge the rules you live by. Picture a mental prison. On the walls are written all of your shoulds. I should be happy. I should be more productive. Resting is lazy. Now, ask yourself, who wrote these rules? Do they actually serve my health, or do they serve someone else's expectations? The modern world tells you to always be on. But Nietzsche knew that real growth happens in solitude. By questioning these inherited judgments, you begin to dismantle the prison of shoulds and create space for what actually is. Nietzsche understood that deep self-work requires time alone, but his own life is a warning about the dangers of total isolation. Depression turns solitude into a punishment. Your job is to reclaim it as a workshop, purposeful solitude. Schedule time to be alone with your tools, to journal, to sit with your feelings without judgment, to investigate your own mind, challenging connection. Then, consciously schedule time with people who can handle your reality, who can see your strength even when you can't. like a trusted friend or a therapist. This rhythm, diving deep into yourself, then returning to the world, is what builds a truly resilient mind. We've journeyed from the raw feeling of pain to a framework for transforming it. If these ideas connect with you, subscribe to continue exploring how philosophy can be a practical toolkit for a stronger life. I also want to start a conversation. In the comments below, share one thing. Which of these concepts, Amor Fati, radical acceptance, the will to power, self-efficacy, or shadow integration, feels like the biggest challenge for you right now? Just naming the struggle is an act of strength. Let's create a space for real insight. Let's circle back to our provocative title. Nietzsche said your depression is a superpower. The superpower isn't the depression itself. The depression is the fire. The superpower is the set of skills you forge in that fire. It's the person you become. By walking this path, you aren't just getting rid of symptoms. You are building a whole new psychological foundation. These are the strengths born from great suffering, its resilience. The capacity for radical honesty. After you've looked into your own abyss, the little masks people wear every day become easy to see through. You've faced your own monsters, so the ones out in the world seem much less scary. The capacity for profound empathy. Once you've known deep suffering, you gain a unique ability to understand the emotional states of others. Your past pain, once you've integrated it, becomes a bridge to connect with people on a much deeper level. The capacity for unshakable resilience. After you've consciously chosen to say yes to your fate with Amor Fati, what's left that can truly break you? Setbacks are no longer seen as failures, they're just more data. You become what Nietzsche called a yes-sayer to life itself, the capacity to create meaning. To emerge from an existential depression is to have stared meaninglessness in the face and decided to create meaning for yourself. You learn that meaning isn't something you find out in the world. It's something you bring to the world through your actions and values. This is the ultimate expression of the will to power. The capacity for joy. When you've lived in a black and white world, you develop a breathtaking appreciation for color. Knowing deep suffering gives you access to a kind of deep joy that people who have only known comfort can never experience. You truly understand that joy and pain are two sides of the same coin. This is the transformation. The point isn't to erase the scar. The scar is proof you fought and survived. The goal isn't to go back to who you were before. The goal is to become the person who was forged in the fire, the one who has integrated their darkness and is no longer afraid of it. You gazed into the abyss, and instead of letting it swallow you, you learned its layout. You mapped your own soul. The abyss is no longer a source of terror. It's the source of your depth. Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy isn't a comfort blanket. It's a demanding set of tools for the mind. It doesn't promise a simple path to happiness. It offers something far more valuable, a blueprint for building strength through your struggles. To reframe your depression through a Nietzschean lens is to take on the hardest task there is, to become who you truly are. It means accepting that suffering is a non-negotiable part of a full life and choosing to engage with it with skill and courage. It's the understanding that the heaviest weights can build the strongest souls. The message here is not to romanticize mental illness. The pain is real and the fight is hard. The message is to empower you within that fight, to give you a new way to think, and to show you that you are not broken, you are not a victim, and you are not powerless. You are on a difficult path. You have been asked to face monsters. But the secret Nietzsche knew is that the biggest monster is usually the unexamined, judgmental part of your own mind. Don't just fight it, understand it, harness its energy. In doing so, you will discover the hero it was guarding all along. You'll find the superpower was inside you the whole time, waiting for your greatest pain to unlock it. You will become who you are.